You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Alderman Bob Fioretti. He is the second ward alderman in Chicago. We're taping the show on May 13th, and there's a lot going on here in the city, in the state, the country. But your focus for the last, I would say for the last month or so has been on school closings, or has it been maybe for the last 5 or 6 months? Does that sound right?
Well, actually, my focus has been not only on school closings, but making sure that we have a good, clean, ethical government, how to broaden our tax base, bring more jobs into the city, see what we need to do in terms of bringing to our people and employing our people in our communities.
Well, that's the broad sweep, but let's start, we'll cover
Well,
that.
it's not that broad. It's all very specific and a lot of work that we have to do in each one of those categories.
Okay. Tip O'Neill said this, I think, all politics is ultimately local, and there are few things more local than your local alderman, right?
And from the way I see it, yes. I think people don't even know sometimes who their congressman may be, who their state senator or House representative is, but they sure as heck know who their alderman is.
And they do in the second ward because you've been there for 6 years, right?
Well, not only that, I'm out there every day. I'm out in the current second ward as it's configured under the old map, and I'm up in the new second ward, the proposed one that goes into effect in 2015.
All right, we'll get to redistricting in a second, but back to school closings. Rahm Emanuel, the CPS, the superintendent, they've all said they have a problem with low utilization schools. That is, in their view, these schools are underutilized, therefore they're inefficient and expensive. Some would say that's correlated, many of these schools are correlated with subpar performance. So they started a process months ago. Now it's contemplated 56 schools would be closed. Is that currently where we are, May 13th, 2013? Approximately?
Yeah, your numbers are about correct.
Okay.
They are closing a little bit less than that number, but they're also having other schools transferred over. So that's correct in terms of the numbers. But more importantly, when you started off with the numbers on utilization, connecting with low performance, the real issue is the economic impact and the impact on what they've done in our communities. And whether or not this was a wise decision by CPS, which I do not believe it has been a wise decision, or is it wisely executed, we need to look at how we address our resources, especially in the African American communities and the Latino communities.
Right, so maybe if we took a step back, the long run problem is how are we doing in terms of, how are we doing in terms of educating kids in the low-income areas that are Hispanic, that are African American. The Chicago public schools are probably 80 to 85% minority. They're certainly 80 to 85% low income in terms of the income of their parents. And one statistic I've heard is that in fourth grade, approximately 1 out of every 5 black fourth graders reads at grade level. 4 out of 5 black fourth graders are not reading at grade level. If that number is approximately right, and Hispanics are probably not, they may be doing a little better, not much better, is that really the major problem? We'll come back to school closings, but if we're only teaching 1 out of every 5 kids to read at grade level, after 17 years of Chicago public school reform, that's a pretty big problem, right?
Well, I've always said it was a problem. I always think we have to address our resources, how to allocate our resources to help our young people, especially those that need Head Start programs. I'm glad that the mayor has started additional Head Start programs across the board. I've been always in favor of that. I've always been advocating that. It gives kids one step up on the ladder. But when we're looking at overall on the numbers, again, it's an allocation of resources and what we need to do in our communities to help our kids learn how to read, write, and arithmetic.
Are we spending enough? Because my understanding, the Chicago school budget is about $6 billion. We have about 400,000 students. Divide 400,000 into $6 billion, you get about $15,000 per kid per year as our average expenditure. Are we spending enough?
And the problem is, it's how we spend the money, first of all, and how we allocate it. I've always said, just recently, I'll give you an example. There was an issue raised regarding the longer kindergarten day. And all of a sudden, it was deemed by fiat that we were going to have a full day for kindergarten kids. Where was the money going to come from? Cuts in the central office, $15 million worth. Well, I think we need somebody to do a forensic audit over the budget to make determinations on how much is necessary in each one of these areas, how much should go to each of the schools, and what we need to do to help ramp up our school system.
So there may be some redeployment of resources that's necessary to concentrate more in the low-income area, is that right?
Well, I always think that's an issue. And not only how the redeployment, we have to take an overall approach. We need to look at the resources that we have to spend, whether or not we need more resources, where we're going to gather those resources from, whether it's the state or federal government. And of course, our property tax method is a method that doesn't help our funding of our schools. We need to find other ways, steady streams of income to go into our school system to help our kids.
The issue of charter schools has come up because roughly now 10 to 12% of our schools in the Chicago public schools are charter schools. The rest are traditional public schools, neighborhood schools, magnet schools. That's about 50,000 charter school students that we have now. There are many who say charter schools outperform across the country, not just in Chicago, on average, outperform traditional public schools. You've been a supporter of some charter schools. Do you think maybe they do outperform and they give people in schools that are not performing, they give them a choice, they give them an out, give them an option?
Well, right now I'm in favor of a moratorium on any future charter schools until we make a determination on what's happening with our neighborhood schools. I think the evidence is clear. The use of charter schools is undermining our neighborhood schools. It takes away the population from our neighborhood schools under an illusion of choice. Now, when you say that they are perform better, tell me which schools.
Well, here's, give you this, take a look at your, not during the show, but when you have time. But that's a book that came out in 2007, written by Herb Wahlberg, that, give it a shot.
Is this on Illinois?
Well,
is this on Chicago?
I think it includes, it's not specifically just in Illinois, it may include schools, but I think these are charter school studies across the country. And there are probably 100, maybe more findings, 100 different studies.
I've seen what politically, how questionable the financial structure has been on charter schools in this city. And I doubt whether or not they've performed better. Name me one charter school right now that can outperform Northside Academy, Peyton, Jones, Whitney Young.
Is Jones in a charter school? I thought
No.
Okay. Well, well, I think Uno has a lot of schools that are outperforming traditional.
Tell me which
public schools.
one.
I don't have the specific list here. I'm going to rely on you. You're the alderman. I'm the media guy.
But you see.
But I'll be happy. I'll be happy to go out and see some. I'll be happy to compile this because they have been studied here in Chicago. I don't have the list of schools right here. I handed you a book that had more than 100 different findings across the country that shows, on average, charter schools outperform traditional public schools.
Well,
and I don't see any reason why Chicago would be any different. I don't expect them to be doing better or worse. On average, because charter schools, the whole approach is that they have more flexibility. They have more flexibility in curriculum. They have more flexibility in time. They have more flexibility in pay. And they have long waiting lists. Parents, that's the ultimate test.
Say. No,
There's a long waiting list of parents
who
want to get into those schools.
On waiting lists.
Yeah.
I don't believe that is true here in the city of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, it's not, no, that,
No.
that'll take, I'll bet anything you want on that. That you have long waiting lists here in the city of Chicago to get into charter schools. You have people essentially waiting lists to get out of the traditional public schools.
Well,
So in terms of their revealed preference, no,
you
there's
know
no
what?
doubt about that one.
There is a big doubt about that.
You don't see any waiting lists on the charter schools?
I would like those that are from the charter school movement to to give me the waiting list of 50, whatever the number is.
Okay.
It is, these numbers are thrown around. The actual, the true results are who is performing better. And they can't make the claim here. The numbers are inflated across the board.
Do you have any studies that show that
I can give you a number of them. I wish we would have had a different office. I'll bring those in later.
We'll follow up on that. I don't want to make the whole show about that. I want to go
I
on
agree.
to the issue of public safety, which has become a major issue, primarily, though, on the west side, south side of Chicago. Would you agree that, although everybody would always like to have safer neighborhoods, would you say the major problems with crime and public safety in Chicago is on the south side and west side of Chicago?
No, I think we had it across the board.
You don't think it's any worse on the south side or west
Well,
side?
obviously, you can see where the shootings are occurring. But
Right.
yes, we do. But when we need more police officers in our streets. I've been an advocate of that for the last 5 years, and we need more police officers across the board here in the city of Chicago. We need more jobs. There are about anywhere between 20 and 27,000 individuals released from prison every year and are dropped in 6 zip codes in the city of Chicago, primarily on the west and south side. They have no job training, they have no jobs, no future, no health care, no way to find themselves a potential job. It becomes a crisis that we have in terms of violence because of of society and this city's inability to deal with the ex-offender problem.
Does the city have the resources to do that? Is the budget now about $8 billion for the city budget? Is that roughly what it is?
Well, with the grants and everything else, it's about $6 billion and
$6
add on
billion.
the $2 billion in grants, so it is about an $8 billion.
And that
Correct.
excludes the $6 billion that's the budget for the Chicago Public Schools.
Yes, it does. Correct.
So roughly that's if you total that all up, it's $15 billion, right?
Yes, a lot of money.
All right,
And so we need to have we need to be
where
make
would
sure
you
it's
cut?
spent wisely.
Would you cut somewhere else to have money to spend on the job training programs you're talking about for adults coming back, being released out of prison, coming back to the south side, west side, whether it's job training, whether it's remedial education, whether it's reading? Doesn't that require additional resources? Would you send them to community colleges? What would you do?
All of the above.
Are we not doing that?
I said, no, we're not effectively.
Okay.
You know, crime is and poverty in this city is all related, and education is all related. And if we can't determine how we're going to separate and how we come up with programs that are going to help our people, help all of our constituents across the board, find ways to train our folks that graduate out of schools, find jobs for them, then we've lost it as a society here.
Well, we're at the 2-year point for Rahm Emanuel, right? He came in as mayor just roughly 2 years ago. He's got 2 years left.
Correct.
So it's time to give Rahm a midterm grade. What do you think? If you're the teacher here and you're handing out grades, would you give Rahm an A, B, C, D, F? What would you give him?
I think I'd give him an incomplete.
Well, he needs some progress. He needs some help. He needs an evaluation. He's looking to you,
That's
Alderman
right.
Fioretti, and he's wondering, how am I doing? Am I doing A, B, C, D, F? I know it's incomplete. He's got 2 more years left on his term, but how's he doing? Could you give him a grade?
I think I'm going to give him a big incomplete.
All right.
I mean, where do we stand? What have we done globally? How have we moved this city? How have we increased our employment opportunities? What have we done on educational-wise? How have we cut down on the violence here in the city? These are all questions that we, the voters, have to look at. I'm giving him an incomplete because he's still got 2 more years. He's got a big war chest. He should be spending the war chest to attract jobs, broaden our tax base, bring down the violence, and find ways that we can all relate our communities together.
Okay, and on education, I guess you would say he had a big fight with the teachers union about a longer school day. It's not clear who won that. We're going to have a longer school day. It's not clear how it's going to be staffed. It's not clear whether it's going to have the kind of curriculum that he or others wanted. Is that an incomplete too? Would you say that's generally a plus, that we've got a longer school day now than we had when he started here 2 years ago?
Yeah, but the teachers were all in favor of a longer school day. I mean, the polling there showed that they were. It's sort of a...
But there was a difference of opinion on how that day would be spent, wasn't there?
well,
Didn't the teachers want to spend it more on music and PE and art?
ways to broaden the horizons of young people,
And
correct.
some people said we need
And
to
it-
focus more on the basics, and maybe that was Rom's inclination.
Well,
He kind of gave on that, and I think the teachers' union won, right?
Well, I don't know if it was a teachers' union fight versus Rom. I think the question was, more importantly, how we educate our young people.
Okay.
And what do we have to do? How do we give them the opportunity to compete in this world, to become critical thinkers?
I understand.
And if you don't
But they have
know-
to read, they have to read.
Of course, but
If only
if you don't-
20% of the kids read at grade level,
But if
we're
you
not
don't know
succeeding.
the arts, if you don't know music, if you don't have recesses, all part of this, to make the person whole, then we fail everyone.
How we do?
Listen, where education starts, and I've said this for the last 6 or 7 years, does not start in the classroom. It starts at the home. The doors of the house are the hallways to education. And that's how we get our young people together to work and learn and achieve better. And then in the home.
But don't we have a lot of broken homes? Don't we have a lot of homes where the fact is that the kids in many broken homes, single parents are doing fine, they are dedicated, they're working hard. But in many of these homes, that's not the case. Drugs are there, violence is there. Don't we almost need a surrogate for the good home that you're talking about for some of these kids? And maybe it has to come from the public schools, a surrogate to provide the home environment that you and I wish they had, but they don't.
Well, one thing I found out during this rising of parents about these school closures is that there are strong parents in our neighborhoods, in every neighborhood across this city, that care about their kids. And these schools that are being closed, it was the parents that came out to support. They didn't want their school to be closed. Now I say that, yes, we all know. And even when we were growing up, you know, gosh darn well, there was some kid that had a broken home. There was a couple of kids in every class that had broken homes. There were, in our days, 20, 30 years ago, it was all hidden. Now things are much more out in the open. And we realize that we have to give more resources. But, when we talk about the concept of parents patria and whether government becomes the parent, then we have to watch what we do. And yes, then, as you said, well, they got to learn how to read, write, and arithmetic. But to make them whole and to make the kids whole, we've got to give them the opportunities to excel. Give them music, give them the arts, give them the possibility to explore. My greatest problem that I have with the current system is we've got so many tremendous resources down here in this city for every kid to enjoy. You throw out that 400,000. I'm not sure what the real number is because I know what CPS says, and I know where the decline of the city has been and how many hundreds of thousands we've lost in the last 10, lost 20.
Population, right.
Years.
Chicago's losing population. Illinois is losing population.
Right, but I hear over and over again that the numbers are about relatively the same. Well, they can't be. But going back, we have the greatest museums here. We've got cultural events here. We've got sports events. I love taking up the little kids up to the Willis or Sears Tower to just look out and see what this city can afford them. I think it's great. We need to give them the opportunity to engage in those cultural events, sports events, and what this city's about.
But in the meantime, we got to go over a little bit we touched on violence, public safety, but again, in many of these areas on the west side and the south side, that's still a major issue. As you know, there's a safe transit issue for kids whose schools are closing. They've got to cross gang lines. There are a lot of kids that are caught between gangs, innocent kids, one gangbanger shooting at the other. These are very difficult problems, but And then in general, the murder rate has gone up in the last 2 years. It went down the last 4 months because we were blessed with very cold weather. And so that kept a lot of the criminals indoors. But I don't know that we can count on that. You say we need more police, but again, where do you get the resources, the money for that? Or do you need to redeploy? Do you need to put more police on the south and west side where the greater danger is and draw them down in other areas that are safer in Chicago?
No, I think we need to hire more police across the board. We need to be innovative in what we need to do here. I'm looking at proposals with other aldermen, and yes, safe passage is a very, I'll say, fragile concept. We actually formed safe passage on the west side. It came away from the killing of Reuben Ivy, who was shot and killed outside of Crane High School, about a block away.
A block away from?
From Crane High School.
Okay.
On Jackson at Western. And I remember those days when he was shot and thereafter. But we got together with the police commander at the time, some community leaders, including Devera Beverly, who's a commissioner on the CHA, myself and others, and came up with the idea of Operation Safe Passage and how to walk kids to school, how to get them to the bus stops, what we need to do, because the attendance fell off dramatically. And it's frightening for young people to go past murder sites. It's frightening for them to go back to school, and they need a lot of counseling when these type of events occur that dramatically and in a trauma sense affect their lives.
It's good that you've done that. It's good that you pointed out that actually it started, you're saying, in your ward, your neighborhood. But it's not a long-run solution, is it? Because in the long run, you got to make the streets safer. And some would say what we have to do is decriminalize all drugs, because much of this crime is related, we've sort of decriminalized marijuana, but they're talking about heroin, they're talking about cocaine. That stuff is terribly expensive if you want to get it as a consumer, because the risk is high for selling it. If we were to legalize all those drugs, the risk would go down, the cost would go down. Some people would take it and continue to hurt themselves, but there would probably be less crime. Do you buy into that argument?
Well, I'm not sure if I do, and I have yet to hear all the sources. I mean, we can make these broad brush generalizations on it, but I'm going to see what the statistics bear out, and of course the statistics can be bent every which way. I am concerned about the rising drug trade, the free flow of guns in our city, the access by those that are felons that can buy guns here in this city that have been well documented from various sources. But I think by working with the federal government, and the federal government taking a very active role in looking at the gun trade here in this city and prosecuting illegal use of guns, I think we'd be a better city and a safer city. Okay.
Switching over to budget, you've talked recently about a new office of budget.
Independent budget office.
Independent entity that would be funded and would assist you, the alderman, when you have budget proposals, looking at these budget proposals. Is that right?
That is correct.
And maybe even assist the mayor, an independent source.
That is correct.
To do that, you have a progressive caucus that would probably back you up on that. You were one of the co-chair of that caucus. You have a Paul Douglas caucus, which is also
another progressive
caucus. If you put those together, you've got 18 aldermen or so, 17. I think Alderman Pawar is back and forth on both.
Right.
So you almost have 40% right there. Do you have a viable block to accomplish some of these things you want to between the Paul Douglas caucus and the progressive caucus?
Well, I think it's a start. I think people have to realize how limited aldermanic offices are in terms of what they can offer. And we have no real staff that can analyze a budget, analyze bond issues, do analysis of what the numbers are.
Or the parking issue, and that's how the problem arose when you had a parking deal when it was Mayor Daley. And number one, you folks didn't have time to really look at it, and two, if you did, you probably didn't have the resources. As a consequence, would you say the city got screwed, they got a bad deal?
Well, not only that, obviously, yes, everybody.
And are they getting screwed again now? Or
Everybody-
when Ron wants to change and have free, so-called free Sundays, but extend the hours in, what, 80% of the area for 2 or 3 hours into the evening? Are they getting screwed again?
I know we said this is May 13th, it's a Monday. Over the weekend, I've been working with several aldermen. We're preparing a letter to go to our budget office and to the Corporation Council asking for additional documents. On the day of the council meeting a week ago, last Wednesday, we received a stack of documents about so thick,
Right.
two-sided. The next day, 24 aldermen came out and approved the deal. All they need is one more vote. I don't know who read it. I'd like to find out what they read, because there are still a lot of questions.
So he's got, the mayor kind of has a docile city council. He has a docile majority, working majority, would you say?
I would say docile's a good word.
Okay.
Yes.
So you've got an uphill battle, because at best, if you had all of your caucus, all of the Paul Douglas caucus, you're still short, right?
Well,
And maybe, you got maybe that, what does that give you? It gives you 18, 20 votes. You need 26, right?
correct. But Jeff, I think the people in this city want transparency, they want honesty, and they accountability, and they want integrity to
So it sounds like they
theirs.
wanted a strong inspector general, right?
And I hope
And
they
you've got proposals there for
We-
a stronger, what do you want to do? You want to have a inspector general has subpoena power?
Well, we're giving him the
You're a lawyer,
resources,
what
the
does that mean?
access.
You're a lawyer, tell people, what does that mean to have subpoena power?
Well, if I was the inspector general and you were the corporation counsel and we were investigating the mayor who appointed you, I would have to go to you to ask for an enforcement of a subpoena against his office. And it's an inherent conflict of interest, so said the Supreme Court in March of their decision. So we are giving under our ordinance, to the inspector general, the authority to enforce its own subpoenas, that
Okay.
office's. We're also giving resources, access to documents, and clarity throughout the course of the ordinances that are out there. Some of them are a little, word changes would make it much stronger.
Okay.
So what we're ending up doing is giving real teeth to the
So
inspector
it sounds
general.
like you want to lead the way. Would you like to be mayor of the city of Chicago?
Being mayor is a tough job at this time. I never thought I'd be running for alderman in my life. A couple things triggered it off, and I ran for alderman. We won first time around, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of the work that I've done for the people
You
of the
upset a
second ward.
14-year incumbent. When you had the runoff against her, you beat her 2-1, right?
Correct.
You're a proven vote getter. They came back and they've taken your word and they've basically taken it away. If you're going to continue here, you'd have to go out and get essentially every new voter, right?
Well, getting every new voter is not as difficult. I enjoy listening to the people of the city of Chicago. I listen to the current second ward, the future second ward. It's always great
So
to
you
hear
would
their
run again
concerns.
in the new second ward?
Well, I'm looking at exploring all the options, but yes, I think the new second ward's a great ward too.
Or running for mayor, right?
Well,
That's still on the table?
I'm not going to say it's on the table. I got to get healthy first, as you know.
Well,
I had a
last 2 years,
round-
very good health, right?
No, I'm recovering from cancer.
Right.
And it's still got its little items, and then I've got to get. Yesterday was the first day I worked out in two years,
You're going to come on our show again and give us a little progress report of these things in maybe 6 months?
or less, and you got it. All
Thank you
right?
so much,
No,
Alderman.
thank you, Jeff.
Alderman
Great to-
Bob Fioretti, for the hospitality of allowing us to come here
Thank
and tape this show in your office. Really appreciate the time. I know you got a number of people. This is ward night, so you got a lot of folks, a lot of your constituents who want to see you in the next few minutes. Thank you so much for the
Thank
time.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Got it.